Hey, and welcome back to the Knitting Mamas podcast. After a 2-week break on this podcast, we are back with a super fun episode that includes an interview with one of our community members of the Knitting Mamas community. And I'm so excited. This interview was so much fun to do. I am talking today to Felicia Perry, who is a mom, a homeschool mama at that, which is amazing. She loves knitting, she loves gardening, and she initially learned how to knit so that she could teach her mom, who needed some hobbies that involved sitting after she had a broken hip. And she found so much joy and benefits in knitting for herself that she just kept going. And she is probably more of a knitting enthusiast at this point than I am. And I am so excited for you to listen to the interview with her. We had so much fun talking about the benefits of knitting for mamas, the benefits, that involve stress relief and just self-care, and how she found this particular tool and added it to her life only 2 years ago. So get ready for this amazing conversation with Felicia and enjoy. Hey there, Mama. Welcome to the Knitting Mamas podcast. If you're a mom who's tired of feeling exhausted and longing for some well-deserved self-care and rest, you are in the right place. I know that finding time for yourself as a busy mom can feel like an impossible puzzle. But guess what? You don't have to compromise anymore. Hi, I'm your host, Nadine Medina, and just like you, I am a mom, wife, and also a happy knitter. Over my 15 years of motherhood, I have been on a journey to discover how to truly recharge without the guilt and the never-ending quest for perfection. The secret? It's all about progress, not perfection. By focusing on simple routines, natural wellness solutions, and the cozy art of knitting, I found the path to feeling whole and content. And on this podcast, I am sharing it all with you so you can do the same. Are you ready to find simple solutions to set yourself free from mom guilt, to take more time for yourself to truly rest, and to use your knitting skills for a mindful routine that creates space in your life so you can breathe easier? Let's take a deep breath, grab those knitting needles, and say goodbye to mom stress. Together, we'll create a supportive community that encourages you to prioritize self-care while juggling all your responsibilities. Sound good? Let's do this. Okay, welcome, Felicia. Thanks so much for your time being on the Knitting Mamas podcast. I'm so excited to chat with you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, it's super fun. I'm actually seeing you right now, obviously on the podcast. That's not going to be available, but I'm seeing that you're wearing something that you knitted, and you actually, do you have a project that you're working on right now too as we chat?
Yep, it's right in front of me.
That's awesome. I love it. I try to get as much knitting time in as I can too, but it's kind of like what this whole thing is about, that I started to help moms find more time for that, because I know that can be really tricky between all the things we have to do, right?
Isn't that the truth? Yes. I don't know. I think knitting though is, if you can find time, it's so beneficial. It really is.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that for sure. If anybody who's followed this podcast for a while will know that that's definitely what we talk about here. So I love that you share that opinion as well. But let's get into that a little bit more during this interview. So I would love to know how long you've been knitting and also how you got started.
Okay, so I had to look back. I started in October of 22. And I actually contacted you because I was interested in knitting, but I had no idea what in the world I was doing. And we've been on Facebook for a while, and I've seen like little projects that you've done, and I just like, hey, give me all the tips that you can possibly, mainly like yarns and where I can find this stuff. So you gave me some suggestions, and I went into Lions Brand and got a ordered a kit while I was waiting for my kit to come in. I just started YouTubing techniques to figure out how to do it. And here I am.
I love it. I do remember that you reached out to me, and I can't even believe that was only 2 years, not even 2 years ago, I guess.
No,
that's awesome. And I'm, I have a lot of people who want to start and who are saying, oh yeah, where can I start? And I don't think I've seen anybody starting that fast and also moving on to such, amazing projects as I've watched you. So, because every here and there I see what you're making, and I'm just like, wow, you're knitting so much. You like really got into it, and I love it so much. It's so great.
Yeah, I definitely jumped in. I seem to do that a lot with with things. If I set my mind to it, I'm just done
You're
and I'm
doing
going to
it.
do it all. Um, but yeah, it's become honestly like one of those hobbies that you know how sometimes you find a hobby and like you like it, but it's okay if you do it or not. Like knitting is just one I continue to come back to. I'll take breaks once in a while, especially when I'm using like a summer yarn with a tiny, tiny needle. Those
Yeah.
patience, like I have patience, but sometimes I just need to take a break from them, and then I'll go maybe like a week without knitting at all because I'm just like I feel like I'm not progressing at all.
So
And then
let me ask you then, because I have that too, and for me, I almost feel like it's boredom in a way, where I'm like, oh wow, this project is like the same, and it's still the same, and it's still the same, and it's so long, and it takes so long, and then I just get bored with it, and I decide to just have multiple. It's funny, I was literally just creating a reel this morning about this, that I have multiple projects going at the same time, just in case I get bored with one, I can grab another one. Do you do the same thing?
that's exactly what I do. So I really, anytime I complete like a project that has a really small needle, I feel so I'm like so proud of myself because it is so boring. But the reason I typically start those projects is A, I want to wear stuff in the summertime.
Hmm.
B, because I'm a mom and sometimes I can't focus on a pattern. So having one that is the exact same garter stitch over and over and over again, where I don't have to count and I just keep going back and forth and back and forth. Like if I'm, they're typically flat.
Right.
And I don't have to count and I can just be a mom and I can put it down, pick it back up and don't have to even think about where I left off. And then I just measure it. So like that's why I pick them up, but they are so boring. So a lot of times I'll take those to the pool with me just because I got to keep an eye on my kids as well. And then sometimes like I just like 2 days ago, I was like, I can't do this anymore because I've been working on this one and it's like maybe 3 inches at this point, and it's only the front. So I just picked up a size 11 needles and started knitting something that I'm almost done with already, just because I need that. But I think that's one of the things. Probably my biggest struggle when it comes to knitting is sometimes I do it for the product versus doing it for the like
The
just the
progress or the
progress.
process, so to
Yes.
speak. Yes.
So I try
I,
to
yes.
anytime I do the smaller needles, I just remind myself that I'm doing this because I enjoy knitting and I want something to relax me that isn't like me picking up my phone. Um,
I'm
but I
so
do.
very glad. I'm so glad you're saying that, and that actually goes right into the next question that I had for you. But before I ask that, I have the same exact thing, and I do remember suggesting to you. I think because it's a suggestion I make to a lot of people who are asking where do I start, is use chunky yarn and big needles so that you have this like feeling of accomplishment. Because I feel if someone starts with very tiny needles and it takes forever, they may not follow through and have that feeling of, oh my gosh, I actually made this, and then they may stop, and it's such a shame because they're going to miss out on all the good and awesome things that come along with knitting, right? So I'm so glad you mentioned that. But I also really, it's funny, I think I may have just talked about it in one of the last couple of episodes, um, about this, like, you need to have two projects going at the same time, because there will be time when you need something mindless and you need to just be like, okay, I can pick this up and I can just start and it doesn't matter, I have to count. And then you also want to have the ones that are a little more challenging, because that actually practices your focus muscle, right? And it helps you just focus in on one thing at a time, which is really helpful as moms, I think, because multitasking, it's really never helps me. So I think it really the knitting really does help with that. So it's so fun that you brought that up, because I just talked about that. But yeah, how has knitting helped you in your self-care journey? Since you just mentioned how, how it's actually helping you like just kind of relax and stuff. Is there any specific moments or experiences, or maybe even like a specific pattern that you feel like, was particularly beneficial for you when it comes to self-care and using it as a tool for self-care?
I think knitting has helped me, like I mentioned a minute ago, was just because me not being on social media so much. When I am not on social media, I, like all of us, we're not comparing ourselves. We're not wanting more. We're just like, you're kind of like living in the moment, the the life that you're supposed to be living in. So knitting has helped because there's times where I don't have the free time, but I need something for me. And my favorite thing to do is to knit, and sometimes even like put my ear pods in and listen to a book. And it helps. Also, being still, like when you're knitting, I've been able to process and um just be like in tune with my own like thoughts, and be able to, my brain's been able to process stuff just because I am sitting. And especially those projects where you don't have to think about them, like you just allow yourself to like process the day, process what you're going through, and it helps. It really does. Now I will admit sometimes I do have to put a book in because I think too much. So I'm not thinking about all that stuff, but it really has helped. I think also like my kids are like sports, and I'm a stay-at-home mom, and I homeschool my kids, and i'm always I'm always doing something for them, and being able to take my knitting and like while they're practicing, take my bag and knit while they're doing practice, or take it and like knit while I'm in the car for a couple minutes while I'm waiting for something. It just, I don't,
It centers you. Yeah.
you gotta sneak them
Yeah.
in at that time, and there's not many hobbies that you can, outside of social media, sneak in like
Yeah.
10 minutes of time.
Absolutely agree. I so love, like, you're speaking all the things that that I love knitting for 100%. The fact that you can do it anywhere,
Yeah.
right, is a huge part of it, because you can take your self-care wherever you need it, and doing it in the nooks and crannies of your day. And I love that you brought up the phone and the social media, because we all struggle with that, right? So,
Absolutely.
yeah,
It's quite a hard thing to overcome.
it
But as
is.
far as like techniques and such, I'm more so about the feeling of the yarn. My
Hmm.
One of my favorite yarns to, even though I don't like the small, like the summer projects, anything that has like bamboo in it, it just feels so good in my fingers. So that's so soothing. But also, I really, really like um, knitting in the round, like just
Uh-huh.
because. I don't know. I think it's probably more soothing because it's so satisfying. Like there's so much
Yeah.
satisfaction in it.
No, I know what you mean, because you don't have to turn, so you almost have no interruption, right? It just continues and it continues and it continues on, and it lulls you almost. So
It does.
yeah, and I love that you're saying that about the thoughts, because I go either way too, and I'm like, yes, yes, you have time to let your thoughts go, and we need that time, almost like to let our mind just do what it needs to do. You have problems that you can solve that way, and you don't have to do it in the middle of the night anymore, because you can do it while you're knitting. But then I agree as well. Sometimes it's too many of them, right? And we do need to kind of either put music on, or, sometimes I even put meditation music on there. Like just that soothing, that just supports that soothing of the knitting already. I just love that you feel that way about it, because you know, for someone who's getting started, and I don't know if you had that issue in the very beginning. I don't remember, because I learned it when I was a teenager, and I did not do it for the benefits of being calm, because I didn't need it then. Um, but did you feel like you were so focused on learning it that you were wondering when that calm part actually would start, that everyone is talking about?
I don't think I don't think I've experienced that. And I think the reason being is like I have I have this, like I just dive into stuff. So like if I want to
Hmm.
make something, I will be like, okay, I have the needles, I have the yarn for it. And then like I just learn as I go. And
Yeah.
like, so like if I don't know how to do like for the longest time, it's like, I don't know I know what knit and purl is, but what's a garter stitch? So like I would just search it. It's all just knitting. Okay.
I
Um,
love it.
but that's how I think it's helped me calm, just because I'm like, I'll just go as I please. And I think the also thing is like, I'm okay with making mistakes while I'm doing it. And some of my stuff has holes in it because I
Oh,
accidentally dropped.
yeah. Oh,
But
yeah.
I'm like, and I still wear it. And a lot of people are like, did you make that? And I'm like, yep, it's
Yeah.
not perfect, but it explains
But
like
I
the
made it.
process. Yes.
I love it. I love it. That's what I always say too, because, nothing is always perfect in life. And if you can just be like, you know what, I can let this go. If you can do that in your knitting, you might be able to do that somewhere else as well.
Yes,
And then
because
there's
there's
times when
so
you want to open it up again, because maybe if you count it wrong and it's not going to fit, that's a whole different thing.
yeah,
But a
that's
little mistake here or there, I think it just adds character too. Yeah,
I think our society sometimes feels like we have to be perfect and we have to do exactly everything right. And there's so much learning and growth that happens in the process while you're still making mistakes. And then you just learn from them and you just move on to the
yeah.
next thing. So
I agree. I love that. And I also like that you're saying you just kind of go in and learn as you go. I think this is a perfect hobby and craft to do that with, because once you know, all you need to know is a knit stitch, which is one single stitch, right? And you can make all kinds of stuff. I don't know what the stitches of the shawl that you're wearing right now. Is it crochet or is it knit?
nope, it's knit.
It's
This
knit. It
one,
looks like a garter stitch then from
yep,
here, but I'm not sure.
nope, it's
Yeah,
just
okay.
harder.
So, you can make things, beautiful things, with just that one stitch. And then if you need something else, then you can go ahead and learn it. And that's honestly what I still do, because there's so many little techniques that you might need, but you don't need them all the time. So I do have to still go to YouTube sometimes and be like, okay, how was that again? How do I decrease or make one left, make one right, to do the shawls or whatever. And I don't see that as a problem at all. Like, I'm not trying to know it all every time and all the time. But I think that's great. And it's such encouragement for any of the listeners who are like, yeah, I do want to start this and it sounds all great, but I'm sort of intimidated because it looks complicated. But I really don't think it is once you actually get your hands into it and get started. And I'm so glad that you shared that here with your story, because I really don't want that to stand in anybody's way of actually really getting into it, because it's just such a beautiful craft to embark on. So with that said, do you have any favorite knitting projects, like any type, like sweaters, tees, shawls, or is it like across the board? Do you make everything? You just mentioned that you're more of the chunky knit kind of a girl,
I
but
I My favorite thing to make is cardigans, and I think it's just because I wear cardigans
Mhm.
so much. I wear them in the wintertime, I wear them in the summertime because it's cold in buildings. And typically they you can make them a little bit faster, and they're just so beautiful. And like buying it in the store, like I think that's another thing. Like buying a cardigan in the store that's that quality that I've just created is a lot of money.
Oh yeah.
So I feel like that's my favorite, but I also really like making anything from top down in the round because I can see as I'm going how it fits. Um, but those are probably my two
That's a good
favorites.
point. So when you make a cardigan, do you usually make those that you knit the front, the back, and then the sleeves, and you seam them together?
Yes.
Okay, those are, and I'm asking this question because again, they're super beginner friendly. As a matter of fact, when I picked up my needles after about a 20-year break, and I was like, wow, let's see if I can still do this. That's exactly what I made. I made a cardigan. The one mistake I did make, which is why I always mention it, is I used very thin yarn and very tiny needles, and it took me like 3 months. And I almost quit.
That reminds me that my first like actual big project was they weren't super tiny. I think it was probably like I don't know, like 8 or something, size 8 needles. And it was in the round, but it was a sweater, like a turtleneck sweater. And it took, it felt like forever, but it's my favorite. It's my favorite project, but it took forever. It felt like, and because I think it was like my first big project. And
Yeah.
I don't know, thinking that I'd be able to get it done a little bit faster than I did. But
That's the perfect moment to cast on a quick one in between, right? And then take your break, do the other one, get that like, yes, I can knit something and I can actually finish this. that satisfaction and then get back to the other one. Because
Yes.
honestly, that's just another thing I feel it shouldn't be this race or competition feeling, right? It's supposed to be the opposite, where you're not racing against some imaginary, other person who's also knitting, I don't know, or yourself. Where it's like, I got to
That
get this done, this and that fast. Like, doesn't matter. It's supposed to
that
be
defeats the purpose of it helping you.
right.
Like, yeah. And
Exactly.
I also decided to, when I started really feeling like that, I learned how to crochet granny squares, because you're not
Super
actually
fast.
making the project, but they're
Yeah.
fast.
Yeah. And
So
they're so fun, and you have a lot of different color combinations that you can create with those. I just finished a project with granny squares,
oh,
and
that's
believe it or not, I had never made them before,
oh,
and
wow, they're
it was
simple.
addictive. Yeah, super
Yeah.
fun. And now my daughter wants to learn it too, so that's going to be really great. um, So I would like to ask you one more thing that I think will be very, very beneficial to the people who are listening to this podcast, and I would also like to hear it myself, is how do you make time for knitting? Like, do you have any tricks up your sleeve? Because you are just as busy as all of us, and you even homeschool your kids. So I'm assuming that it might be tricky for you to find the time to knit, but clearly you do. So why don't you share some of your
My
best?
trick, honestly, my trick is put a project in a quick bag. Like, I have the like reusable bags.
Mhm.
It's pretty because I like pretty stuff. But and I just put everything I could possibly need ever for knitting in the bag, and I take it with me like it's my purse. So when I get in the car, I
Yeah.
have my knitting bag with me. When I get out of the car, I have my knitting bag with me. Fun fact. So basically everywhere I go, I have a knitting bag with me. Fun fact, we went to the Capitol building as a field trip with my kids. And one of the things you may not bring is knitting needles. I guess because I could see how they're
It could
sharp,
be
but
a
they could be a
weapon.
weapon. Yeah. But good thing I read that before I came, or I
Yes.
would have brought my knitting needles there too. That's the only place I've ever found that I can't take them.
Interestingly, yeah, now that you say that, because I was actually surprised that I could bring my knitting on the airplane. And I did my research before I went flying because I was like, oh, I want to knit. It's the perfect time. And it's okay. That you can actually do. So that's interesting that you cannot bring it into the Capitol
They
building.
must know
But I
something.
don't think they allow a lot of things in the Capitol building from
That's
my
true.
experience the last time I went. It's yeah, you can literally just bring yourself. So, but that's so funny. That is a good story. Um, I would like to know where anybody who's listening to this interview and wants to follow your knitting journey and your projects and what you're knitting next. I would love to let them know where they can find you online.
Okay.
Can you share that?
So I'm on Instagram. That's like the only place.
Mhm.
And my handle on Instagram is time well invested. Time like the herb. So
Oh, fun.
THYME well invested. That's where you can find me.
That's a good twist because you also love gardening, like you mentioned in the beginning. So, and your garden is beautiful. I look at your garden. I'm like, yeah, that's my goal right there. I need a garden just like that.
That's so sweet. It takes a lot. I will say that the animals love it just as much as I do. So
Oh,
that's
I
always
bet.
fun. But yes, I do love gardening and knitting. Favorite thing is to sit in the garden and knit.
And
So
knit. Perfect. That sounds absolutely amazing to me. At here to wrap it up, would you mind sharing some of your favorite designers that you have purchased patterns from? From what I know, anyway, you don't make your own patterns, or have you started doing that?
I tried and it
Mhm.
was a fail. So we'll get there though. But I really like Lion's brand. I like Two of Wands. I've made a whole bunch
Mhm.
of her things. I also like We the Knitters. Like if you go there, they have
Yep.
a bunch of but they have a bunch of different people. There are a few people that I really want to try. I just haven't because they use little teeny needles. Which is I don't remember what her handle is on social media, but her name is Inda Ida. Her name is Ida, and she's from Norway, and she makes the beautifulest like tank top summer tops. Oh, and there's also Camille. I don't know if you've seen her before, but Camille, she does like lacy knit. Um, and her handle I think is Macy Meal, Macimille. Um, I think We the Knitters uses some of her patterns, but I really want to try those. But I am not like I just I just use whatever. um, there's
No,
just so
same
there's
here, same
I feel
here.
like
And
there's so many. I
yes.
have like this file, and that's another way I knit. I have a file on my phone that has like all the patterns that I've ever purchased or got for free, and none of them are from the same people.
Yeah.
So
No, and that's the beauty of it too, right? That you find any style, any any yarn, weight, and there's just so much out there. And I think that's so awesome because it's kind of having a renaissance, if you will, right? This whole craft, which is fully to our advantage. But I will just make sure that we put these in the show notes so that people can look at those designers you just mentioned. And what are you knitting right now? Or do you have multiple things going?
right this moment, well, yes, I'm knitting two things.
Mhm.
I'm knitting my bulkier yarn that I just started. I'm doing a scrappy vest. So, and that's from the pattern I got from Wool and the Gang. I'm not using their yarn, but their patterns from Wool and the Gang. And I think it was I don't think I paid for it. It was a free pattern. And then I'm also knitting another free pattern from Lion's brand, the Basic Tee. It's like a t-shirt. Those are the two that I'm currently doing.
Awesome. I can't wait to see those. And we're going to make sure that we put the links to both of those too in the show notes so people can check them out. I want to check them out myself because they both
Awesome.
sound great. And I don't think I've seen either one of them. So that'll be
Awesome.
fun to look at, especially if they're free patterns. Those are always great to, just to kind of have in your queue. And if you like what you said about the scrappy one, are you using like yarn that you had or is it specific for that? Yeah. So I think that's really great. I have so many of them as well, just lined up. And one day, I'm going to look at them and see what I can make or what I can use to make them. So thank you so, so much, Felicia, for your time today. I really appreciate it. I think this was amazing. And I'm just so glad that I got to talk to you about how you got started and, what makes knitting so amazing for you.
Thank you so much for having me, Nadine. Take care.
Hey mama, I hope you've soaked up some great ideas from today's episode. Remember, a happy mom makes for a happy fam. If today's chat hit home with you, it would mean the world if you could leave a 5-star written review on iTunes. Your review will help other moms discover our community and embrace guilt-free self-care. Also, if you're scrolling through Instagram, why not snap a screenshot of this episode for your stories? Don't forget to tag me at The Knitting Mamas so that I can shout you out on my page as well. Plus, that way we can stay connected and spread the self-care magic. Oh, and have you heard about our cozy Facebook community? It's a guilt-free zone where we share relaxing routines, essential oils, and knitting adventures, and so much more. Come join us today at bit.ly/knittingmamas and let's unwind together. Until we chat again, take care, mama. And remember, looking after yourself is not selfish. It's essential for that balanced life. Catch you soon right here on the Knitting Mamas podcast.